Hey everyone, welcome to The Creek. My name is Jared Miller and I'm the ministry lead here. I grew up under the age of the weekly world news. This was, for me and my generation, the media that largely defined what a supermarket tabloid was. It was the silliest of supermarket circulation publications that probably ever existed, and as a kid, my friends and I would pool any money that we had together and walk to the grocery store and just laugh and laugh and laugh. This was the publication that gave rise to Bad Boy, to the Elvis Lives movement, and to a million of the most preposterous headlines that you've ever read. It's so ingrained in me that to this day, I can't look at an 11 by 17 inch piece of paper without being immediately skeptical of whatever is posted on it. The very definition of tabloid for an entire generation is synonymous with incredibility. That's what made this scene so perfect.
Anything about that seem unusual to you? What would scare Regic so badly that he'd risk a warp jump with a newborn? Let me check the hot sheets.
These are the hot sheets?
Best investigator reporting on the planet. Go ahead, read the New York Times if you want to. They get lucky sometimes. Thanks, Manny.
Cannot believe you're looking for tips in the supermarket tabloids.
Not looking for. Found.
There was, for me, a little bit of sadness when in 2007, the Weekly World News finally went out of business, or at least pivoted to a website subscription model. It does still exist today, so good news for all of you diehard fans out there. But in 2020, the thrill of a bizarre headline and the idea of online satire are deep, densely populated wells to plumb in the social internet today. But I want to know, how did we get to this place? How did we go from tabloids being so ubiquitous that they can be table settings in a Will Smith movie to basically being non-existent within a decade, or at least non-existent in the form that I grew up with them as? Because nature abhors a vacuum. Supermarket tabloids haven't gone anywhere. They haven't disappeared. Today, instead, they just look like this. Today, instead of stories of alien abductions, they're filled with salacious stories of celebrity rumors as bonkers as anything that you read in the Weekly World News or that it ever printed. And yet these manage to find purchase in practically every grocery store in North America. And objectively, that's weird. But I think it actually helps us to understand something about the secular age we inhabit together. It informs our relationship with both truth and information, but also gives us a lens to understand the trajectory that we're on as a people. And all of it boils down to this truth. You and I would always rather read something that might be true. In 1979, when the Weekly World News began, secularity was nascent. It'd be a long time before it was as universal as it is today, but nonetheless, an age of skepticism had dawned. Coming out of the age of protest and revolution that had characterized much of the 1960s, the 70s were a period of retraction. Idealism became skepticism and cynicism. Progress became stagnation, and a much more generalized apathy was becoming normal. The tabloid emerged as the culture was broadly looking for meaning, and it gave people, or at least it gave the people who were in on the joke, a release valve from the anxiety of an anxious age. It gave them freedom from the tyranny of the certainty being imposed on them. It gave them a way to process the act of living out postmodern reality that they didn't yet have the words or the teaching to understand, and to live into a reality that had abandoned overarching stories. That is, it helped them make sense of a world without prescription. Today, we call that world the secular. It wasn't enough for it to just be untrue, though. Because while fiction might have been a form of escapism in the early part of the 20th century, a growing sense that the world as we perceived it and the world as we were told it was were not the same thing was growing. Thus, the format of the tabloid. A newspaper, the most commonly available source of reliable and authoritative media that was widely accessible, was skewed through the lens of ridicule. The tabloid is essentially just trust and authority piled into a clown car. But as secularism took root in our society, the ideas that were fit to print increasingly failed the release valve test. Ridicule gave way to just ridiculous, and circulation, such as it was, plummeted. Today, the other gold standard in tabloid publication, the National Enquirer, has a masthead that boasts it is the place for celebrity gossip and entertainment. What we're left with when the Weekly World News went away was stories that are designed to make you look twice. It's TMZ on psilocybin, headlines that are ultimately immune to Googling, free from certainty, and leave us ultimately in a world beyond skepticism. The credibility of the publication has not increased. Its purpose remains unchanged, but its acceptability to the postmodern mind has skyrocketed from what it used to be. And the irony of all of that is that it places us in a world of wonder. Because when you read about a war brewing between Dr. Phil and Oprah, you ponder it for just a moment because you read it. Your brain is wired for wonder. To ask, is that true? I read it and I wonder. Tabloids reveal that wonder still has a place in our secular age. That we still have a need for a release valve from the tyranny of certainty that our world imposes on us. And so remember that the next time you're in line at the grocery store. But for now, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. All the best, and we'll talk to you soon. Cheers.